Ahsoka Part 6 is full of connections to other Star Wars stories, but it's also taking great inspiration from real-world mythology, which was super fun to pick apart. So here's a full breakdown for the latest episode, Far, Far Away. As Ahsoka travels from one galaxy to another, Huyang mentions the stories he used to tell younglings at the Jedi Temple, History of the Galaxy Parts 1, 2, and 3. Ahsoka says that Part 1 is the best, and because it's set up as a trilogy, I think this is likely all a joke about the three Star Wars trilogies and Star Wars fans tending to passionately pick and defend their own favorites. The link to the trilogies is reinforced when Huyang later begins one of his old stories with "A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away," the same text that opens every Star Wars movie that was originally inspired by the fairy tale opening Once Upon a Time. Morgan Elsbeth claims her people, the ancient Dathomiri, were the first to harness and ride Purrgil. I can buy that because they were also known to ride Rancors on Dathomir, which is just love riding big ol' creatures, I suppose. On the planet Peridia, the villains take Sabine to a tower. It definitely seems like it has some Tolkien-esque inspiration, looking like a mix between Orthanc and Minas Tirith. That would not surprise me if it were intentional, given this series' other thematic connections to Middle-earth. At the top of the tower, we meet three actual Dathomirian Night Sisters. They're closer in appearance to how we saw them in the Clone Wars series, with more vibrant red robes and white skin with black tattoos. The Great Mothers look a lot like Mother Talzin. They seem to be inspired by Greek mythology in two sets of three mystical figures. First is the Grey, also known as the Grey Sisters. They helped Perseus learn to destroy Medusa, but they also share some stronger similarities with the Fates of Greek mythology, three sisters who were also interestingly called the Moirai, which is awfully similar to the name of Ahsoka's spirit companion Morai the Convor. The Fates spun the story of humanity into a loom, with each thread representing one person's life. The Night Sister Mothers speak of loose threads a couple of times. The names of the Fates were Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. In the credits, the Great Mothers are listed as Clothau, Lachesis, and Actropau, all very similar if not identical to their Greek counterparts. It makes sense that the Witches of Dathomir would have origins outside of the main galaxy, since their understanding and connection to the Force is so different when compared to that of the Jedi or many other cultures we've experienced. The Chimera makes its first live-action appearance as the Star Destroyer of Grand Admiral Thrawn. It's got an artistic rendering of its namesake on its ventral side, and has been Thrawn's flagship since he was introduced back in Heir to the Empire. And who better to explain its mythological importance than the book's author, Timothy Zahn? He said, in Greek myth, the Chimera was a fantastical, fire-breathing beast that combined lion, goat, and snake. It was also held to be unconquerable, though it was eventually killed by Bellerophon. Nowadays, the word refers to something made up of disparate parts, or something wildly and grotesquely imaginary. All of those elements went into my decision to name Thrawn's flagship the Chimera. Disparate elements, human plus chiss, considered imaginary, and hence not taken seriously by others until Thrawn was ready to move, and unconquerable. The ship was an Imperial 1-class Star Destroyer. It kind of looks like a 2-class in its introduction, but Corey's datapad and Eckhart's ladder pointed out that the conning tower is simply broken, making it appear more like an Imperial 2-class. How's that for a nerdy discussion? The damage was all done by Purrgil at the end of Star Wars Rebels. Several space whales came to Lothal while Thrawn bombarded the planet. They smashed into his fleet, attached themselves to his Star Destroyer in a less than gentle fashion, and then flew off to Peridia. It's so far unconfirmed, but I join the several other Star Wars fans who believe the Night Troopers are possibly undead soldiers reanimated by Night Sister magic. I'm gonna do a whole other video on that, but this is awfully similar to the Death Troopers of Star Wars Legends, who were zombie stormtroopers. All of this is just in time for Halloween season. Their armor is rebuilt in a similar manner as Kylo Ren's helmet in The Rise of Skywalker. Both designs were inspired by the Japanese art of kintsugi, involving the reforging of something broken using gold lacquer. Enoch, the captain of Thrawn's guard, is seen wearing a distinct helmet with a golden face inlaid in what appears to be a tank trooper helmet or something similar. The gold face is reminiscent of the Mask of Agamemnon, a Greek artifact said to be a funeral mask, giving us another connection to the dead. Enoch also shares a name with a biblical character from the book of Genesis who lived 365 years before he was taken into heaven alive by God himself, so he transcended death, which again reinforces the whole undead idea. Within Star Wars, I think it's possible he could serve a similar role to Rook, Thrawn's bodyguard in Star Wars Legends that appeared and died in Star Wars Rebels, so the character would need to be replaced in this new version of the story. I think I'll be doing a whole video on Enoch as well. He is played by Wes Chatham, who played Amos in The Expanse, my favorite character from that series. Then of course we have the Grand Admiral himself, who also first appeared in the Legends book Heir to the Empire. He's a Chiss and one of the few high-ranking non-humans that existed in the Empire. He is played by Lars Mikkelsen, who also voiced the character in Star Wars Rebels. He is accompanied by a musical theme played on an organ, which was first orchestrated by Kevin Kiner for Star Wars Rebels as well, and it is so cool to hear it again. Thrawn agrees to load up Night Sister cargo from the catacombs. The boxes look like they could be caskets of some kind. I wonder if they're dead Night Sister bodies that are just itching to become undead Night Sister bodies like we've seen in the Clone Wars and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The Grand Admiral's willingness to ally himself with the Night Sisters makes a lot of sense given his previous defeats. Both times he was foiled by mystical creatures connected to the Force, a power he had little understanding of. If there was a chance for him to learn about even one aspect of the Force in the past 10 years, he surely would have taken it to remove that blind spot. Thrawn says Sabine Wren is a familiar name to him. He had some encounters with her in Star Wars Rebels and specifically studied her art to hunt down a rebel spy within his midst. The Howler Sabine rides isn't anything pre-existing from Star Wars as far as I know, but it fits in well with the rest of this episode's high fantasy vibe. It seems like something straight out of the Neverending Story or Dark Crystal or the Wargs from Lord of the Rings. Same with the little crab people, but they also remind me of some of the weirder episodes of the Clone Wars, like when R2 and 3PO discover the odd little Petitites. Their village reminds me of the Lerman village from the Clone Wars episode Jedi Crash. Their outfits remind me of Hobbit clothing from Lord of the Rings, and their ability to disguise themselves as rocks is similar to how Frodo and Sam hide from Sauron's forces using their elvish cloaks in the Two Towers. Baylan refers to Ezra as a Boken Jedi. In the real world, a Boken is a Japanese wooden sword used for training, similar to what Ahsoka and Sabine used in the Jedi Shuttle back in Part 3. I wonder if this term could be used somewhat dismissively by Baylan, as if the wooden sword is a cheap imitation of a lightsaber. Maybe he considers Jedi who are, quote, trained in the wild as lesser than those trained by the Order at the Temple. This character is named Jabba the Hutt if you're a Star Wars Rebels fan. If you're not, it's Ezra Bridger. His appearance marks the first time we've seen the character in over 5 years since he first went missing with Thrawn in the Rebels finale. Eamon Esfandi plays him perfectly. His eye color matches his appearance in the animated series, he's got the scars on his cheek that he received from the Grand Inquisitor, the music, the banter with Sabine, his overall personality, perfection, no notes. His opening line, "I knew I could count on you," matches one of the last things he said to Sabine, that he's counting on her to see his mission through. One of his final lines in a hologram to his Rebels family said that he couldn't wait to come home, a sentiment he reiterates to Sabine in this episode. Thrawn requesting the entire history of Ahsoka Tano is very much in line with his personality. He learns everything he can about his military targets and exploits any given weaknesses. Technically, he should know a bit about Ahsoka already because he met Anakin during the Clone Wars and worked with Darth Vader during the time of Star Wars Rebels, a story seen in the book Thrawn Alliances. And that's everything I caught. Let me know what I missed in the comments because I'm sure there are more mythological connections I don't even know about. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Ahsoka coverage, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page for video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.